and working with local experts around the African Growth and Development Policy Modeling Consortium, which is operating under his department. So I'm happy to share the floor today with him for his presentation. And before I hand over the floor to him, I would like to say a very warm welcome to Usman Tal, our long lost friend, and also to my former colleague Adif Siwa Masangi. So welcome all of you to the session today. So Ismail, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Usman. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are today at this time. So my name is Ismail Fofana. I'm the Director of Department of Capacity and Deployment. So today, I'm happy to share with you the work that my department has been undertaking for some weeks and months now. So we have the first results for a couple of countries that we would like to share with you. And thank you for this, for the opportunity. So my presentation is going to be structured in 5 points. The first, I will start with the introductions to give you the why we are conducting this study. And then the second one, the how we're doing it. And the third and fourth, we'll discuss the scenarios that we have built and the results that we get from implementing those scenarios. And then finally, I'll be concluding to give you a little bit way forward in this the work that we are doing. We all know that the COVID-19 pandemic is affecting our African economies through many channels. Among those channels, we can cite a couple of them here. We have the labor supply and demand at the domestic or local supply and demand of goods and services. And then we'll also have the labor market that is affected and employment with all the quarantines that countries has gone through. And also still we have some sanitary measures that are in place that are still affecting those markets at the country level. But we also have started to get some evidence on how international remittances has been affected by the pandemic. But also the global financial and capital markets are also, impacted by the pandemic. Here, think about the foreign direct investment are also affected by the pandemic. And then we have also the global commodity trade and market, which is the subject of our presentation seminars of today. So the work that we're doing here is to focus only on one of those transmission channels, which is the global commodity trade and market disruption. So here we are assuming that nothing is happening in the other transmission channels. The reason why we are doing this work, making that assumption, because we want to get, an insight of how this particular channel is affecting African economies and affecting the livelihood of people. Down the road, when we start getting the statistics, from the impact that the pandemic is having on our countries, African countries or economies, the statistic will combine all those channels at the same time, and you won't be able to really highlight, or disentangle which channels has affected the economy in which way. That's won't be possible through those statistics. So this kind of assessment will help you to disentangle those, isolate the impact of specific channels compared to others. So, so then the focus will be on only one channel here, and then we'll be assessing how external trades, growth and poverty are affected for a couple of countries that we are covering here. This presentation is about Ghana, Kenya, Nigeria, and Senegal as a case studies, but our work is, as is being conducted beyond the 4 countries. Right now, we're covering 1,000 of countries, and then our goals will be to go beyond those the countries that we are presenting here and more. One of the objective of this work is also to provide evidence for policy decision making. Countries are going through this pandemic. They are also trying to respond the best they can, and then getting information, getting evidence from a different stakeholders and partners will help them to navigate through the pandemic, and then take a decision based on evidence, and then prioritize and rationalize the resources that they have to respond to the pandemic. So I think this kind of studies is very much important for our countries, African countries, to go through these difficult moments. The how we did the analysis is we use the research toolbox, which comprise country models, single country CG models that has been developed over the years under the CADEP support of the Comprehensive Africa Agriculture Development Policy of the African Union. So models has been developed for for countries in Africa to assess the macro policies and external shocks, and so we're taking advantage of those tools that are already out there, but also beyond the CG model, which is more macro. We have developed a series of micro simulation models that is linked to the CG models to be able to go beyond the economical side of of our analysis, and also include poverty analysis. Then the second, we use the commodity price outlook that is released by the World Bank to have information input on how prices have evolved, before and after the pandemic hit. Before the pandemic hit, which is October 2019, so the World Bank has a prediction on how commodity prices will evolve, in 2020, and then they come up with another forecast on April 2020 after the pandemic hits, then with a new forecast. So we use those two information to start assessing how the prices have been affected and the price shocks that we're going to implement for each country. We also use the international trade statistic in order to build the price shocks for countries. So the import and export data has been used here and have been matched with the price information that we're getting from the World Bank, and also with the toolbox, research toolbox, in order to have a kind of, to build those scenarios. But beyond building the scenarios, also we update our database and models to make sure that we are having the latest economic structure of those countries. So basically, the trade structure has been updated using the trade data, but also the macroeconomic structure of those economies that we are focusing on has been also updated using the latest macroeconomic data to make sure that we are really using the up-to-date information and up-to-date models to carry out this analysis. We implemented two scenarios. The first scenario is the business as usual scenario, which used the information before the predictions of prices, but also prediction of the economies, how they are, they will be evolving in 2020 before the pandemic hit. And then we have the COVID scenario, which is the second scenario, which use price changes, after the pandemic hit. And beyond the price changes, we also implemented some market access, changing market access, global trade and market access here too. So I'll be talking about this in details in a couple of minutes. So starting with the price, changing global price of primary commodities here. The way we built the price shock scenario is we use, as I said, the two predictions released by the World Bank in October 2019. That information is used as the pre-COVID or business as usual scenario for prices. And then we have now the April 2020 predictions as a COVID scenario. So basically, you have the estimations for 2019 of those 46 primary commodities. And then you have two predictions of 2020 prices. So the first prediction of October 2019 compared to the 2019 estimation, it gives you how the prices will have been evolved, changed, if there was no COVID pandemic. And then the second prediction on April 2020 gives you another, price evolution, price changes, over time between 2019 and 2020, which will factor in, the pandemic effect. So comparing the two, it's what we have here in this graph. So this graph is comparing the two changes, COVID compared to business as usual scenario. And then here you can see that that the COVID has has driven most of the primary commodities prices down here. So you have the 46 commodity prices that we are tracking in this study. And then you can see in red also that mostly we have three groups here. The first group where we are observing change that the prices are going down, which include energy commodities, crude oils and others. And then also you have the basic minerals or basic metals. Here, aluminum, is one of them, iron, etc. The prices, except iron, but aluminum and zinc, the prices of those commodities are going down. And also fertilizer and chemical commodities, also prices are going down. And then we have a second group of commodities where, prices are going up, which more is gold, platinum, mostly the precious metals prices are increasing. And then we have the third group where it's more mixed. We have a mix of increase and decrease, and that group includes agriculture and food commodities. So here you can see that the prices of cocoa, coffee are going down, while you can see that palm oil prices are increasing. Here, rice prices are increasing, etc. So basically, not all those 46 commodities are traded by countries, by specific countries. So basically how the country is going to be affected by this price shock will depend on his own trade structure, how the composition of the import and export basket, but also, you know, the changing prices that we have here. Taking Kenya as an example here, the way we build the price, a country-specific commodity price scenario is based on the external trade structure here, as I said. So you can see for Kenya exports here, you have the 10 most exported commodities for the country here, starting from tea and then coffee and others. So this is the basket, the composition of the export basket for Kenya, and then matching this basket with the price changes that I presented earlier in the previous slide. And then you have then the price changes, the prediction in price changes that we have on the right-hand side graph here. And then you can see that tea and coffee and most of the exports exported commodities in Kenya, the prices are going down here. And the same exercise is done on the import side. So you can see here also the 10 most imported commodities for Kenya on the left-hand side of the left-hand side graph, where petroleum oils is coming as, you know, as an important, having an important share here, and then palm oil, rice, etc. And then on the right-hand side, you have how the prices of those different commodities have changed, comparing the COVID scenario, you know, with business as usual, against the business as usual scenario here. And then in the end, the average export and import prices for a specific country is given, you know, here. For example, the case of Kenya, for which I presented, you know, the import and export baskets. You can see here that export prices are going down by 4.4% in average, and import prices going down by 7.5% in average. So you can see here that in the relative term, export prices are increasing compared to import prices. And this situation also, we can observe it in the case of Senegal, where, you know, import prices are going down while export prices are increasing a little bit. So in relative term, export prices are increasing compared to import prices. The situation for Ghana and Nigeria, the other two countries, we have the opposite situation for those two other countries. But Nigeria, you can understand here, with a huge drop of the average export prices due to, you know, crude oil. 90% of the country export is oil and oil products here, while import prices are just declining by 11.5%. Looking at the case of Ghana, we have a similar case, even if it's more moderate. The drops are more moderate on the import and export side. So the export is declining more than import. So in relative term, export are declining more than declining here relative to import. Then the price shocks are combined with the trend a little bit in market access here, because you know, shocks are important, but also with all the sanitary measures that was put in place, the confinement measures, etc. So trade and access to market has not been easy for countries these days. So there are delay in in the import and export processes. When there was confinement and quarantine of people, so you won't have enough manpower to load and containers, the ports, etc. So all those has an impact on on the flow of the trade flow. So basically, in our analysis, those are how market access condition and global trade have the change in market access conditions are captured through the elasticities, and we're using three of them in our model. First one is the export supply elasticity and import demand elasticity, which little bit give you a sense of how you can easily make a trade-off between different markets, your national market and your foreign markets, in terms of importing goods and in form of exporting goods. This also gives an idea of how countries, if they continue to facilitate trade, so you'll have probably a higher, less disruption here. But if countries are impeding, the trade, trade, let's say, not facilitating the trade flow, so basically you'll have a major disruption. So, so the way we capture this is we build what we call scenarios depending on higher and lower elasticities, and then those scenarios from 1 to 35. So we have 35 scenarios that we implement with the price shocks. So the 1, 2, 3 until that's the one of the extreme, meaning that you have minor disruption here, and here for most of those elasticity we use high values. So meaning that you still have good access to international markets, your trade processes at home are still going on normally. There are no major disruption. And on the other hand, we have the lower elasticities that we use here, which reflect that there's major disruptions in your trade processes in accessing to markets. And then we look at how the results of the price shocks are affected under those different conditions. As a result, one of the first effect that we are observing, we are observing is the real exchange rate effect here, which is the price of tradables relative to the price of non-tradable here. So we can see, so moving from the left-hand side to the right-hand side. So think about the left-hand side is where you don't have major disruption in facilitating trade, in accessing to global markets. So yeah, and then why the other one is the opposite. The right-hand side is the opposite of that. So looking at the left-hand side, we can see here that for most of those countries, the real exchange is increasing because it's above the zero line, except Senegal. We can see that it's only for Senegal where we have an increase in export prices, a slight increase in export prices. This is where at the beginning, the real exchange rate was below zero. So, an appreciation for Senegal here, while the other countries, the real exchange rate is depreciating. But if this is in the case where you don't have major disruption at home and outside in terms of trading with other partners, accessing to global market, but also in your own economy, you're not having a major disruption in the way you have been trading. But if you look at the other side of this graph, the right-hand side, where we have a major disruption at home and, also in terms of accessing to external market, then, the real exchange rate increased here because you're not trading that much. So basically, you need to compensate it with your real exchange rate in order to adjust your current account balance. We can see it through import and exports here, the two graphs, the upper graph in how export has been changing depending on the scenarios. And then the lower graph is how exports also have been, import has been affected depending on scenario. So looking at the situation where you don't have major disruptions, trade disruption, then you can see in terms of price impact, the price impact uh, were positive, relatively positive for Kenya and Senegal, as I said. And then for those countries, basically, they are increasing their exports, while Nigeria and Ghana prices was going down relative to export prices were going down relative to import prices. So for them, exports are declining. But you can see for Senegal and Kenya, where the impact was the price shocks was increased. I mean, exports increased with the price shocks. Then when it becomes difficult to access to the global market, and then when the conditions of trade, even at home, are not that easy, so you have this kind of the export declines in the case of Senegal and Kenya, as we have been seeing for the Nigeria and Ghana. And import are following the same trend here. Imports are higher for Senegal and Kenya in the scenario where we don't have major disruption in trade flow and because of they don't have that foreign, current account constraint or foreign revenue constraint, because exports are increasing there. But the opposite is for we saw the opposite for Ghana and Nigeria. And then when you have the trade is not facilitated and it is difficult to trade because of all the measures that we have been discussing. And then you can see even import for Senegal and Kenya declined, but they are close to zero, but they're still positive, while Nigeria and Ghana is negative. And then in terms of growth effect, we can see here that looking at just the left-hand side of the graph, the price shocks are positive for Senegal and Kenya. If there is no major disruption in the trade conditions, as you said, because of the import prices are declining more than export prices for those two countries. So you have a positive or increasing relative price for export, while the other, Ghana and Nigeria, it's the opposite. But we can see here, as we move from the left to the right side of the graph, all countries are negatively affected because of, if you add to the price shocks, on the top of the price shocks, you add also those higher disruption in accessing to global markets and also in trading at home, except then you have the negative impact for Senegal and Kenya. So basically, Senegal and Kenya will be more affected by the way the country will be responding to the challenges that the global pandemic is, the country is facing. So if trade are facilitated, it's they manage to keep the global trade, flows, going on. They facilitate the encourage trade, whether import and export, there is no impediment there, then they may minimize on at least as far as this channel is concerned, they may, they won't be no major concern for how the global trade is affecting the country. But it's when, the management of that trade part is not that effective, where, the positive impact that you're getting from prices will be, will be, we become negative because of the trade has not been facilitated. For Nigeria and Ghana, we're still below the zero line, so meaning the growth rate is declining. Whatever situation we have here for the disruption here, because of they are facing a negative price impact, price shock. In terms of poverty effect here, so the poverty effect that we have analyzed is based on really the last scenario on the right hand side, the scenario 35, which is more the conservative scenario, meaning that you have price shocks. On the top of that, you have a higher, lower elasticities, meaning that you have a major disruption in the accessing to the global market. So in that case, you can see here that GDP growth is declining for all countries. And then poverty is increasing also for all countries, Nigeria, Ghana, etc. And then you have on the right-hand side, the table there is the numbers in terms of poverty, number of poor people that are falling into poverty compared to the baseline scenario. That's what you have there. You have almost 5 million for Nigeria people compared to the baseline. And then you have Ghana, 300, more than 300, close to 300,000, close to 200,000 for Senegal. And Kenya, well, that's where you have close to 100,000. When we compare poverty for urban and rural, here you can see that's for the two countries, Nigeria and Ghana, rural poverty is increasing more than urban poverty in terms of head count index. While on the other two countries, Kenya and Senegal, rural poverty, urban poverty is more, it's increasing more than rural poverty. In the case of Kenya, we can see a slight decrease in rural poverty. The next step for the analysis is we're planning to cover more countries. The research toolbox that is available to us has close to 40 countries models and database that we can tap into and then implement the scenarios here or conduct the analysis. So we'll be over the coming month, we are will be striving to have this critical mass of countries covered across Africa. And also the World Bank will hopefully be releasing another update on their price prediction of price forecast in October 2020, next month. So the team will be working to update the COVID scenario, because that's going to the April COVID scenario will be updated with the October 2020 COVID scenario here. And then with those new predictions from the World Bank. And then also what the team is planning to do is to now, have more perspective on the intra-Africa trade of agriculture and food products in our analysis. So how to, what is the impact of the pandemic on the way we are trading among ourselves, and compared to the extra-Africa trade. So expanding the analysis in that direction also will provide more information for decision making. I'm going to stop here, and I would like to thank you for your attention. I'm giving back the floor to Dr. Bajan. Thank you, Usman.
Okay, Ismail, thank you very much for your presentation. We will now go to the discussion round. Just would like to ask Nabu to remind the audience again about the modalities and the rules for the discussion before I go to the Q&A. Nabu, please.
Yes, sure, Dr. Usman. So basically, the chat has been already used with some questions. They are going to be sent to Dr. Usman via email. The other way around would be to send it directly to communications@academia2063.org so that we can send them to the moderator. And as usual, if someone wants to take the floor, we will open the mic in a few seconds.
Okay, very good. I'm trying to open my chat now and see everything. It looks like where I am now, all panelists, I'm not sending. I want to view. How do I view the chat? Okay. In the chat, okay, it's not sending. Okay, let's go there. Okay. All right. But I can see all the chats now, and I don't know what happened. But I will. Okay, I think if you send your questions, probably I'll get it. Hopefully. So let me get started and open the floor for questions. So what I will do, even if you send your chat through the SMS, please raise your hand so that I can identify you. All right. So let me. Okay, let me back.
Dr. Bajan, just so you know, unfortunately on Zoom, they can't raise their hand. So it would be better if they just unmute themselves and present themselves.
And go ahead and speak. Okay, very good. All right, then let's do that. So if you want to speak, please unmute yourself and ask your questions then. Or still, if you want, you can send a text message to our participants. I think Sheikh will then forward the text messages to me. All right, so you can do that maybe on WhatsApp, Sheikh, if it comes in. So as you all have seen, changes in the global economy have important impacts on what happens in our countries as much as measures inside our countries on which we focus more often and less than on what's happening around us. So I think that the work of Ismail and his team showing us what is the likely implications of changes in the global markets, which can be quite important in terms of export performance, import performance, impact on growth, on poverty rates, and a lot. So the floor is open now for your contribution. When you take the floor, please mention your name and your institutional affiliation so we know who is asking the question. Thank you, and the floor is open. Any questions for Ismail from the audience? Let me say welcome to Robert Asiedu. Good to see you with us, sir. Hope all is well. Any questions for Ismail on the impact of changes in global prices, commodity prices, and the ramifications for African economies?
I don't know if Sheikh is with us. I can probably read them if you would like, because unfortunately, since I'm recording the session, I won't be able to send them to you.
Okay, do that. But what I'm doing also, I'm reconnecting so that I can get to the chat box directly.
Right.
Okay, in the meantime, you can read whatever questions you have there while I reconnect.
So we have one first question from Adane Tufa.
Okay.
And the question goes by, are petroleum oil and petroleum gas different? Why the same minus 35.5% for both?
Ismail, why are both showing the same price change? Are they the same commodity or are they different?
Thanks. They are different commodities, but they're using the same input, which is crude oil. And then, you know, their prices, the way their prices are evolving is more like linked to the price of crude oil.
Because the two, I guess, are close substitute of related products, probably. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So I still cannot get into the chat box. Nabu, if there are any questions in the chat box, could you ask them? Otherwise, please raise your hand. I see one person, Tefera. Please, one person, go ahead.
Thank you, Ismail. Thank you, Ismail, for this very informative presentation. My question is, do you expect much worse result for the four countries in all indicators if recent price data was available, say, for example, August instead of April 2020? Thank you.
Ismail, go ahead.
Yes, on this one. So, yeah, I'm expecting that the new prices, we still have the monthly prices that are available. We can go and look at how prices have changed over time, you know, since April. But in terms of predicting the price for the rest of the year, we are not doing that exercise. That's something that we can do, the team can do, but you know, we did not want to reinvent the wheel. The World Bank is doing it already. Why not taking it from there and add value to what they are doing? Probably when time will come where we want to go on that exercise ourselves. And then so that probably we'll have already that information, you know, giving us with the new data that are coming out until August, you know, we'll have seen the changing trajectory in terms of prices. So I'm expecting that particularly for some of the commodities, you may have less, like crude oil. Probably you'll have the impact will be much lighter. Some of the others probably will have more impact. You know, the impact will be more pronounced, but definitely I can say it's for specific products for the moment. Yeah, that's something that we can do. We can look at how prices have changed for the recent month, and then we can have some kind of intuition on the direction that the prices are going. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Ismail. Let me then give the floor to Siwa Msangi. Siwa, please.
Thank you, Ismail. Thank you, Usman. Congratulations to you and the team for really good analysis on these important issues. Two questions. I know that you're focusing on the commodity story today. I'm thinking of things like tourism, which is like a place like Kenya would affect the services sector. And I know that, do you have plans maybe in some other part of your analysis later on to look at that side of it? And I know that the informal sector is always a very tricky thing to capture in the data that we use for our economy-wide models. Anecdotally, have you been thinking of the impacts that are being felt in the informal sector is comparing to what you're capturing in the models right now, even just from an anecdotal point of view?
Thank you, Siwa. Good questions. Ismail?
Yeah, Siwa, can you come again for the informal one, the last one? You were a little bit breaking up, so I couldn't.
Oh, apologies. I was just saying, I know that the informal sector is a hard thing to capture. Are you getting a sense, even anecdotally, from some of the countries that you've been looking at, how the magnitude of the impact there is compared to what you're capturing in through the more formal channels that you model?
Thanks, Siwa. Starting with that one, not really. You know, getting up to date, even formal data, it's really a challenge in our country. And then adding that to informal, you know, it's really a big challenge. So far, you know, this is something that the team would like to look into and to find a data source that will help us to get some insight on how that informal sectors has been affected. You know, as I said, whatever data will come out there will have combined more than one channels of transmission, all of them. The work that we're doing here is really help to isolate one specific channel. That's probably on the modeling side, that's something that can be done. You need to get more micro data and employment data that is available in most of the living standard measurement studies, data kind of database. So you have details information on who's employed, where, what kind of employment, etc. So you can build on that and try to have it in your models and try to look at now how different measures has impacted the informal sector and through the economy. But we haven't done that yet. We don't, and myself, I'm not aware of any available information giving, giving us more insight of what is going on right now on the informal sector. For tourism, I think that's a good question. Yes, it's happened that we're not covering all commodities because we don't have information available. The one that we are covering in this analysis is the one that the World Bank is tracking prices on the monthly basis, but hopefully down the road, I mean, by the end of this year or next year, we'll have more information about other sectors like the tourism services, and then we can expand our trade shock and cover more commodities than only the primary commodities only. Over to you, Usman. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Let me go to the list again. I don't see any hands up. Nabu, could it be that you got questions via text message?
Yes, we do. And we also had the hand raised. So the following question is from Sitsi Makombe. Thank you, Ismail, for the presentation. Can you please clarify which time period you're looking at for your analysis? The price, the growth, and poverty impacts are for what specific period?
Good. Ismail?
Yes, thanks, Sitsi. They are for 2020, only 2020 for the moment. All right, this is something that we can, the prediction that we're getting from the World Bank goes beyond 2020. You know, they predict prices all the way to 2024, but we decided to stick on 2020 because of, you know, COVID itself. The disruption that is creating is has a lot of uncertainties, you know, then it's going to be difficult, you know, to go beyond 1 year analysis for the moment. until, probably by the end of this year or next year. That's where you can start planning beyond one year. But for the moment, it's only for 2020. Thank you.
Thank you, Ismail. Any other questions? Please raise your hand or send a message to the chat box for Nabu. Any comments, questions for Ismail? If there are none, then I guess we can close the session for now. Let me thank everybody who joined us today. It's a pleasure having you all with us. We would like to welcome you to the next webinar that will take place next Thursday, the same time. This time we're talking about the impact of COVID on production systems across Africa. As you all know, whether it's the confinement measures or other measures countries take to control the disease or the disease itself, there are possible implications for production activities. Farmers may be too ill to go to work. Farmers may not have access to the seeds that they need because the markets are closed. They may not have access to fertilizers and a lot of other things. We do have a situation, however, it's very difficult for us to know what's happening on the ground because people are moving around. You cannot do a survey, but even if you could, there's just no time to mount such a work and get the data in time to be able to do what you need to do. So what we're doing here in one of our departments is to use remote sensing and artificial intelligence through machine learning techniques to be able to have a real-time look at how production systems are adjusting and are coping so that we can forecast expected harvest to guide countries. And we are looking at, just like we did on trade here, but more importantly, in our work on the local markets, we're looking at we're looking at local commodities, those that most people wouldn't focus on, especially global organizations. We're looking at the millets and the sorghums, the fonio's, the yams, the cowpeas, and the like. So we would like to welcome you to the webinar next Thursday. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, and also remind you of the different work streams that we have under our work on COVID response. We got 5 work streams. This is the one of them, global market shocks and how the economies adjust. We have also one on mapping and understanding vulnerability of local communities. Just like human beings can have pre-existing conditions, local communities also can have pre-existing conditions that make COVID and its impact more deadly, more devastating when it hits there. So we want countries to know which of those communities are the most exposed, have the most pre-existing conditions that they can take care of them before the disease gets in there, or if it does, that they know how to protect them. The third is the production disruption system that I just talked about. Number 4 is looking at local staples food price markets and their prices and how to adjust to changes around them. We know that the poorest and most vulnerable among us depend on those local staples and their prices in the markets. So having the possibility to look at how they behave allows countries also to know where it hurts the most. So those are the 4 work streams that are ongoing now. The last work stream is looking at policy responses and what good practices are there among countries. We know that countries are dealing with getting access to inputs to farmers under lockdown and other issues. We know that they're worried about the poor and the vulnerable getting access to foods while prices are skyrocketing or markets are closing down. We know that they are trying to manage transport to avoid the spread of the disease. And some of them also are worried about what happened to trade. So we're trying to canvass a few countries, a few case studies to see which countries are handling those issues the best so we can spread the good practice across the continent. It's important to do that because although we haven't reached the crisis proportions in Africa, COVID is going to be with us for a while. It's not going to be 2 or 3 months or 6 months. We think it's going to be slow in spreading, but it's going to be also slow in stopping. So we think it's going to be another 1 to 2 years. So if one country is doing things better than the others, there's a benefit therefore to spread the good practice so others can copy that. So that's what we have in our envelope. So we look forward to welcoming you next Thursday for joining us, and good evening to those who are from the West African coast, and good day for those who are joining us from North America and somewhere else. So thank you very much and see you next Thursday. God willing.